got Sam Caudle on Rethink Real Estate today. Sam is the leader of Living in Tampa, and it is a brand that he has built from an inbound perspective. We've spoken a little bit before on the podcast about some people that are doing long format content in order to draw people in. I really do believe, though, that Sam has really got this buttoned up. We speak about obviously the content side of the business, but we really dive into what happens to a lead when it comes in, somebody that puts their hand up, fills in a form, people that call direct, and what happens with each individual step as we go through that pipeline and that funnel in order to actually milk out who are the people that are actually serious, who are going to do the business. He's got a business at the moment with 6,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel, gets over 100 leads a month from the videos that he does create. We talk about team infrastructure. It's a very small team that he has. He speaks about it very, very well. He speaks about also with his business primarily over the last 4 years being buyer orientated, how they are dealing with the commission problems that are out there at the moment, which again, he does it very elegantly. This is a very well-rounded episode on many, many different topics. It's not just about long format content. It's more so about how to run a business. What does your week look like? What does the infrastructure look like? Hopefully you enjoy. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Sam, welcome to Rethink Real Estate.
Ben, thanks for having me.
Do you know, it's always great to have a guy on the other side of the camera that looks like he's got a legit setup as well. We've got earphones on, we've got a microphone, all that stuff. It's not just a laptop.
Well, I do listen to your podcast, and I've seen that you wear headphones. I'm like, I could go without, but I want to match.
Well, again, first of all, I'm not going to call you a liar in front of everybody that listen to the podcast because you've got a lot going on at the moment. But let's break into it. Why should someone hang around and listen to the podcast?
My business was built off advice I heard on podcasts. And that's how I built a 7-figure real estate business. Like, that is all that I did was learn from podcasts and apply what I learned.
Do you know, Sam, it's funny. You're probably the same as me in the sense of that I'm in a conversation with people, like say I'm socially out for dinner and they'll bring up a topic and I'll say, I heard in a podcast this. And I had to stop saying I heard on a podcast because I sound like that's all I do.
Well, if I don't preface it like that, my wife is like, "What? Did you hear that on a podcast or something?" I'm like, "Yes, I know I'm talking about it as if I know it, but I did hear it on a podcast."
That's good. I love that. There's an approach that ultimately you have to real estate. You're based out of the Tampa marketplace, but the one thing I'll say is that your branding, the way that you've branded the whole living in Tampa side of your business, I think it's something to sort of talk about first of all. I do want to talk about the YouTube side of the business. I do want to talk about all of that stuff, and we'll definitely focus on that. But from a branding perspective, you work with EXP. You've kind of had to be pretty self-sustaining, so to speak, on what you've built and how you've built it.
Yeah.
Just give us the cliff notes on how did you come up with the idea? How did you come up with the brand? How did you come up with like the destination marketing that you have?
I just copied other people. I listened to podcasts, heard these guys, Will and Eli, doing Living in Denver. I literally sent them DMs asking for permission to copy them. Like, hey, can I do what you guys are doing? And then I just made it Tampa. I made it, the palm tree and the logo. I had to make it more Florida. And in the midst of that, had to make it something that I liked because my voice, my face, all these things are it really is a personal brand about real estate. So I needed it to be something that I enjoyed representing and enjoyed, that made it sustainable enough to where I could keep going.
Yeah. There's a part of this, I wouldn't mind getting your feedback on this. Like Tampa and Florida is a marketplace where you're seeing a great deal of inbound people moving from other parts of the country coming into. Mm-hmm. Let's say that I'm in Southern California, which I am, okay, and I'm a realtor here. Do you think this approach would work as much when you're seeing a great deal more people moving out of Southern California versus actually coming to Southern California? Do you think this would be the right approach for somebody to start up there?
This is the right approach for anyone that is okay with building organic content in the long run. Because it really is building a brand.
Yeah. Now
I, reach out to builders and they're like, "Oh yeah, I've seen your videos." Like we started collaborating with more listing agents on high dollar listings. And they're like, "What do you charge to feature us in one of your videos?" we're like, we're not going to charge you. We just want to, like, we want to share this with our audience. So if you can approach it like you're building an audience, building a community, and you can do it in the long run, it's the right approach for everybody. I actually have a call with someone in Southern California tomorrow that I've been coaching. He's building a channel, and it's the longer brand play is really what it is.
It's so funny. I think that the longer brand play is something that I think that probably a lot of people are rolling their eyes at on the other end of this camera or other end of this podcast, going, "Oh, long brand, the long play." You know, I just want to know how to do more business now. But having the mental tenacity and the stamina in order to go through the content element side of things. Can I talk about like just a week in the life of you for a second? And we'll get into the particulars because, like, again, we're going to put all the links below. I think that people just need to surf your channel, go into your website and everything like that. Like it's pretty phenomenal what you guys have done. And it's so comprehensive. That's the one thing that I like about what you guys have done is it's so comprehensive in the sense that it's easy for me to follow. Would it be easy for anybody in the general public to follow as well? Like I click on your website, you know, the Living in Tampa one, and you go through. You've got the individual areas of Tampa. I love that. Like what area are you considering? Like it's like that's amazing. And if you haven't considered areas, here's some videos on the areas and all that stuff. Like I love that tailored approach. But what does a week, month look like for you from a content perspective? Because you've got a lot of content online.
Sure. And I have been doing it for 4 years. So it builds up. And I've cleared out some videos that stopped performing because you want them to have this kind of evergreen life. You want them to keep, picking up a couple hundred views a week. And so some of them die off. You want to just kind of clear those out. But I shoot content twice a month. I now bring a videographer with me to do that. So I'm paying a videographer a half day. I've got 2 videos planned and we publish 1 video a week. The rest of my time is the next marketing thing, systematizing everything, pressure testing all the systems. I have one partner agent that works with me. He does 95% of the showings, does 95% of the contracts. I'm there to assist. Hey, let me call them and just work that out. Or how can I help in the midst of all that? Today, I helped one of our clients move a couple of pieces of furniture and then came to do this. So it's, I really approached it as like, what do I actually want to do during the day? I want to focus on the things that I find engaging and challenging and fun. I have 3 little kids, so I want to be flexible to be with them. And I like helping clients, like in the bigger picture. I just handle more of the top of the funnel, the video idea to like the onboarding call.
Right. And let's talk about that funnel. I'm fascinated because you're getting over 100 leads every month at the moment is certainly something I've read. Now, I don't know whether that's out of date or whether there's more or less at the moment, but I when something comes in, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't do well with is the data capture and then the execution of it. I think that Zillow is evident in the way that they make their money through the leads that ultimately they get you to pay for because it's down to the capture rate. They don't ask you to pay at the end of a transaction most of the time. Obviously, there's other programs that are there, but most of their money, if you look at their revenue stream, 90% of it is agents paying for a subscription where there ultimately comes down to whether or not they can follow up on the lead and get the lead. How does your funnel work? So somebody sees a YouTube video or sees something that you're doing and it's captured. What is the process that it has to go through in order to mature to get to you?
So we've got a few different layers to that, and we're kind of building this out more. And I can show you some of the holes in it. Like right now, people call, text, or email. They're committed. They're calling saying, "Hey, can you be my realtor? Hey, they're sending a Zillow link. Could you show me this house this weekend?" Like they're going to that next level really fast. And those are like lay down leads. And since that's 15% of our leads that come in, those get the most attention. They close really easily. There's no selling, you don't have to have a sales process. You just have a client process. So you get them on a Zoom call, they click on a link, schedule that call. We take notes. We kind of explain the next steps of the process. They're on board. But when it comes to everyone else in that funnel, they have raised their hand, right? They've watched the content, then they've reached out. So maybe they're 2 years out. Maybe they decided to rent at first. We're working now. How do we like reactivate all those people? How do we engage a little bit more like marketers and less like realtors? And how do we like present a deal to them that they might engage with? So we tried something last week where we sent out a text to every person, 800 people on this one list. And we got a 10% response rate to this one text. So within 3 hours, we had 80 people reaching out to us asking for more information. So, but that's something our coach points out. Like you never know what's going to activate people. So you have to try a bunch of different things. And especially when people are actually warm in your database.
Yeah. So that's probably coming down to a complacent system of people thinking that it's plug and play. You've constantly got to be evolving, checking, thinking of different ideas, different messages. Do you mind sharing what that text message was that provokes people to respond?
Yeah, it was, hey, we just left this new community. They have 2 houses available at 3.9% conventional loans. Let us know if you want more info, something like that.
Right.
And it was like, yeah, I want more info. Like that was what people responded. Send it to me, please.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the database that you're working of people that have put their hand up would be how much over 4 years? What's the sort of management of that you're doing? Not the ones that have called and said, hey, we're ready to rock and roll. The just management of that in general. Like how many are you talking about?
Yeah, so it gets cleaned up a lot occasionally. If people are like, take me off, or I decided not to move. We clear it out quite a bit. So it's right around 1,000 people right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. And from that, not from that, who manages that for you? Is that you doing that from an insight perspective, or do you have somebody constantly just checking the data or washing through the data?
Yeah, my partner does most of that, and that's something I kind of manage him doing. And I always insert ideas like, hey, what if we tried this little thing? And we have our own CRM built on Go High Level. It's called Agent HQ. Okay. And so we can build an automation really fast to send out, the deal of the week, and then the text follow-up text tomorrow. Hey, our recent video featured that community, and if you want to be on this list, so we could build that out to go out automatically within the next 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. Yeah. Now, what is your read receipt like? Like, so for example, you send out an email to the 1,000 people of the deal of the week. How many people open that and look at it? Do you follow those numbers?
We just do text for the deal of the week.
Right.
And so text is high. Like, we're in the 70-80% red. Like not most people are opening their text messages. Yep. For our weekly newsletter, it's more in the 30s, which is actually pretty good for a weekly newsletter.
That's phenomenal.
and it's very brief. I'm very committed to, I don't want it to take longer than 3 minutes to read it, because I wouldn't give that much time to somebody, especially a weekly thing. Yep. So I'm like, hey, let's take a topical kind of story about the area, whether it's this one suburb and this downtown's delayed, or this storm's coming, or things like that.
Yeah. Now, I guess that I kind of derailed you a little bit from the sort of the day in the life or the week, because again, just fascinated with how you manage these things. And I think that I'm hoping that people will benefit from this in understanding that. But so the day in the life or the week in the life of Sam, you've got a couple of people you've got your partner on the team that sort of deals with the showing side of the business and everything along those lines. You're focusing on the content-driven element of the business and the branding element of the business. Is there like a set period where you guys sit down and you talk about the listings that you've got, you talk about the buyers that you're running currently? Yeah. Like how does the logistics of the business at that point work for what's currently in your bucket?
Sure. Yeah. So every Monday morning we have kind of a briefing for the week. Monday afternoon we have a pipeline review. So that's everyone that like has a declared stage in our pipeline. And we just kind of run through them. I might remember something from a phone call that didn't make it to the notes. And we just kind of like, hey, what about this thing that we could send over to Jared? Like we think about those kind of things together. That's a 30-minute meeting. It's not long.
So can I just double click on that for a second?
Yeah.
Sorry. So the pipeline is somebody that has come down the funnel from that 1,000 odd people that has put their hand up, as you put it, and then do they divert away from that funnel directly into the pipeline if they call you and say, hey, I need help? Is that correct?
Typically on that call, we're kind of assessing where they should be in the pipeline. So the pipeline's typical, kind of like new, cold, warm, hot. We just have it broken up a bit more because we have, a buyer presentation call in there. We have some other things. So we put that up on the TV and we're kind of like looking at it together. Hey, what do we need to do to get this person over here? Have we talked to him this week? And those kind of things.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, great. So talking about the individual people, just so that we have an understanding of what you're working with at the moment. Forget listings. Let's talk buyers for a minute, just so that people. I'm hopefully trying to expand people's mind around the capacity that they can handle. How many buyers would you guys have in that pipeline that you would have an active conversation about for 30 minutes on your Monday?
Probably 50.
Yeah. See, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's great.
50 people that are looking to buy within the next 6 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there comes down to a level of discipline in that, because on a Monday morning, there's plenty going on. There's lots going on. You could literally just brush across and go, nothing's changed with those 50 people. Like okay, let's just move to the next part. But you can't do that. That individualization of what you guys are doing is probably the real discipline in that.
And it doesn't take that long. It really doesn't. Okay, yeah, that person, okay, no update, but we do need to make sure we are set for them when they're in town in 2 weeks. Like those kind of things that just, you look at that and it creates tasks on your calendar. It creates like certain future things to think about, to plan for, all those kind of things.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like, because in our business, we have a non-distressed auction portion of our business, and like we run that portion of it by, all we do is on a daily basis, we go through every single listing that we've got at every stage that we have. And it just ultimately, you're right, it fills the day up with what are the action items that ultimately need to happen based on that. Yeah. At each stage.
But it's actively triage as well. So like medical triage is like you identify who's most likely to survive.
Yep.
And you take care of them first. You identify the clients that are most likely to close or most likely to need your help that week, and you take care of those. And then you do the same thing the next Monday, and you get through all of them whenever you're actually doing that cycle.
No, that's great. So Monday morning comes around, there's that meeting, we talk about the pipeline and everything along those lines. What else does it look like?
So then we have some other kind of indicators where Aaron, my partner, it's like, why would you call Sam? When do you call Sam? And then what do you ask Sam? Like there's just times where he needs my interjection on something, or he's helping a client and he's like, hey, let me call Sam and see what he thinks. And then he calls me, and then he calls them back and he's like, hey, Sam thinks we should do it like this. Yep. So it does kind of feel like a broker team leader kind of role.
Sure.
But I'm just like the anti-team leader.
I love that. I do love that. And with all due respect, you being part of EXP, that's hilarious.
Well, what I love about EXP though is that you can build whatever you want.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's what I love about real estate in general. It's the most like pliable kind of thing, because you can get deals that come from all different directions. You can, build brands in all different ways. You can do different sides of the business. Honestly, we really enjoy working with buyers.
Yep.
That's not changing right now for us.
Yeah. And I guess that to dive down another rabbit hole here is that let's talk buyers for a second now that you've brought it up, is that obviously with the changes that are happening out there at the moment, it sounds like you're relatively buttoned up with the way that you handle most of those things anyway. They sort of come through the funnel, you do a buyer onboarding meeting. I'm assuming at that point you're talking about commission.
Yeah. Yeah, we are.
And how are you addressing the commission conversation up front with them? Or is there ever a time where a buyer just calls you and goes, that might not have a relationship with you, hey, Sam, I need to see this property, or he calls Aaron and goes, hey, I need to see this property. Do you say, no, you need to do the buyer meeting, or how does that work?
Yeah, sometimes we can fit that whole meeting in that first 10-minute phone call.
Yep.
And if they're like, hey, we don't have to run through everything. I bought 20 houses in my life. Okay, let me just send you these videos. We also have like a funnel built where they can go through the videos, and that explains the whole process without like interjected stories. Like, no, it's just me talking to the camera, explaining the steps. But you brought up an interesting word that we never talk about, and that's commission.
Right.
We talk about permission. Hey, this document gives me permission to be your agent. It gives me permission to ask for compensation. And see on there how to cancel it. Just send me an email.
And it's pretty much that easy.
It's that easy. Yeah. Sometimes they're like, hey, I might have a couple questions. Can we sign it in person? Yeah, no problem. We'll just stand out by the truck outside the first house.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing that it's probably those that think that it's an issue, it becomes an issue for them because they move towards that.
Yeah, I was teaching a group of agents on Monday about that, and just those kind of points. I'm like, raise your hand if you're like just worried about this, but you're not even having the conversations. And it's like every hand goes up. It's just this premeditated kind of fear because it hasn't been an obstacle in a lot of our markets.
Yeah. So Sam, if we then move through to another portion of your business that I wanted to focus on a little bit more specifically. Again, we've spoken about it a little bit, but the YouTube side of it.
Yeah.
Predominantly, you've obviously gone down the way of like with those leads that come in, are most of them buyer leads? Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
How do you then focus on building a listing orientated business at the same time? Because I'm assuming you still are like every other agent, is that you definitely like working with buyers. Is that how do you create that listing focus as well in your business, and how do you prospect for listings?
Sure. So Aaron calls expired listings.
Got it.
Very targeted expired listings that we know we can do a really amazing experience for. So sometimes that's historic houses. Sometimes it's just us being picky. Like, hey, I really like that house. I want to sell that house that Babe Ruth used to live in. Let's call that guy.
Yeah.
Because that listing expired and nobody's called him in 100 days. I can make a really cool video about that. Like, so some of it is that. Like, let's just like see where the interest is and like pull the thread.
Yep.
But also past clients. Like now we're at year 4, and I think it's okay to work with buyers for a while, and then they start to cycle around. I have an appointment tomorrow. A client that bought 3 years ago and had a huge like insurance claim on their house. Want to get out of it. I want to sell, and then my mother-in-law's moving in, so we need a bigger place. It's like, okay, for the first deal was 680. Now we'll sell his for 750, and he'll buy one for 800. Like it comes around if you stay in touch with people. We do quarterly gifts. We do client events. We also just reach out and ask for reviews, or reach out and hey, we updated some stuff on our vendor list. Make sure we want to make sure you have that, like all those kind of things.
Yeah, great. So there's obviously that cycle through mentality of the longer play game that in essence is that your business will not only become, buyer driven from the YouTube and the content element side of it, it'll also become driven by the people that you've done business with and you've stayed in touch with, and you've got that process to keep in touch.
And they still watch the videos. They still see the brand. They still experience me. They're like, they call and they're like, hey, I saw on one of your videos you had another kid. Congratulations. Like
that's great.
But they're doing it from like watching a YouTube video on their TV.
Do you know what's funny? It's so funny. The people that have done YouTube that we've had on the or created that long-term brand and made that content play, so many of them have said to me the relationship that they have with the clients that come through. It's basically like you've never met them before. They've never even spoken to you on the phone, but they talk to you like you've known them forever.
Oh yeah. You have to be careful because you kind of want to be friends with all of them because they have this like parasocial connection with you.
Yeah.
My favorite is if I'll set a lunch appointment or coffee appointment with someone that I haven't seen face to face yet, and I can just stand there and wait for them to see me, like because they've watched me a lot, and they're like, oh, like, hey. I love that.
It's funny. I had a meeting with a gentleman down in San Diego who's a lender who does a great deal of video, and he's like, I can walk into a restaurant and I can tell if people have watched my YouTube videos because they're like. But the thing that I wanted to sort of ask you about is that your partnership that you have. There's a gentleman that I had on the podcast a little while ago. He was really starting to figure out the YouTube element. He had an inbound business, like an inbound area where a lot of people were moving to, and sort of started to click to him. And he could not hand it off. This was like they'll only ever do, probably a small amount of business because from it they love the fact that they're getting inbound, but they can't hand it off because they're like, people won't hand off. It's a real blockage for them. Whereas you've managed to do so. Do you ever get clients that are like, no, but I watch a video on you. I want you to help me rather than him?
Yeah. But I've found ways to avoid that conversation entirely. And it's by having a very clear process. If there is a really clear process, they don't question anything.
Right.
They feel supported. Like, oh no, Sam built this thing. If they do say something about it, I say, hey, I've tested tons of agents. I chose Aaron to work with because it's going to feel like me. Mm-hmm. Now, there's things he's better at than me. There's things I'm better at than him. I'll put myself in the group text. Like I'm here. I'm engaged in all this.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. So I think that's one of the things that people coming and listening to this podcast and might be getting the idea, this is amazing. You've got to be able to scale it to the extent that you have. You've got to be able to hand it off. You've got to be able to do that.
And it really depends what kind of business you want to build too. When I started it, I was thinking, I'm going to refer all these deals out. I'm going to make 25% on all of them. So I need this many. They wouldn't hand off that easily.
No.
So then I had to find some kind of hybrid model. The first deal I split with a partner was 2 days after my son was born, my second child. And I made as much on that deal. That was the biggest deal we had ever done. And it was the first deal I split. So in that moment, I felt like, oh, wow, like we could split this and grow it. And then I can focus on growing it. I can focus on the business stuff, and my partner can focus on the in the business stuff. And we can kind of separate it that way.
Yeah. What's the long play here, Sam? And again, maybe you might turn around and tell me, Ben, there is no long play. It's just you want to do this forever and this is what you're going to do. But is there an end goal in mind? Because I feel like one of the biggest challenges that most people have when it's in real estate is that I had an interview with somebody the other day that said, I got myself financially secure and I needed to figure out why I want to stay in the business because that was my goal in the very first degree. And there's a lot of people here that would get themselves to that position of being financially secure or having a business like yours is that is self-propelling, so to speak. But they'd want a capital event or think that they don't have to do anything anymore. There becomes this air of entitlement that then their business starts to then go backwards. What is your end goal here?
I guess I don't think about it as much. My wife asked me the other day, she's like, why are you trying to make so much money? And I was like, she's like, what do you want to buy? I'm like, literally nothing. Like, I want to be able to like travel a little bit. My kids are so little though. Travel sounds kind of stressful. I've
seen those people in the airport. Travel does seem stressful.
You're on an airplane just apologizing to everybody the whole time. No, I don't really want to do that. But it's more the game of it. It is. It's like, no, I like the challenge of building what's next, what's going to happen to the market, and approach it like not like a realtor. From the beginning, I approached it like, hey, how do I build a brand and a community? Now I'm approaching it like, how do I act like a digital marketer? So now we have lead magnets that correspond to organic content that like have different kind of funnels and automations associated with them that we just launched. And so it's the layers to it. And there's just a lot more capacity. Ours has been grown entirely organic. Now our coach, Ryan Pineda, he's a big YouTuber, real estate investor in Las Vegas. And he's like, hey, you guys have only done organic. Like, let's do some paid marketing. Let's like do it this way instead of like just buying leads, and let's see what happens. So like, there's just so many avenues of it we haven't quite explored, but I like to run the business. I'm not trying to retire. I think people get into real estate thinking that they're going to just make it big, and they're thinking like exit before they're thinking about what they're building, how they're impacting their community, how they're impacting their clients, how they're impacting their family and friends. Like, I'm thinking more like that. I mean, I'm 34. Like, I'm not thinking much else.
No, I got asked that question the other day as well. Like, what? Like, would you sell? And I said to them, no. And they're like, I don't believe you. You'd sell for the right number. I'm like, maybe I would, but I'd start the business up again and keep doing that same thing unless I had a non-compete. Like,
right.
Like the reality of this is that what would I do?
Right.
Oh, like, well, really, what would I do? I don't know. This is the only thing I've ever known. It's, all that stuff. So, but I guess that sort of rounding out the episode, I like to kind of ask our guests from a resource perspective what they listen to. You seem like a big podcast person. Books, podcasts, different things, that stuff. But before we get there, you do some real estate consulting and coaching.
Sure.
And I think that anybody that's interested in this model, I think you guys have it down to a fine art and have very much perfected it from my perspective anyway. So is that something that people that are listening today or that see the video eventually or whatever it is it something that they could reach out to you about? Is that something you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my partners and I own a company called Legit Agents, which is the name of our like EXP downline, but it's also a community that people can join without being part of that. Right. So for $97 a month, they get access to all of these group calls, all these training calls, YouTube classes that I'm leading, and I'm developing some additional kind of YouTube fast tracks and things like that within that ecosystem. But also just reaching out to me directly. I hop on so many calls just to help somebody. Like, hey, I'm struggling with this thing, and I'm like, okay, let me just run you through a couple of questions, help you realize you have what it takes to make these videos, to create this content, to answer the question that someone's potentially searching for. So I love to interact with agents, and that's one of the things we didn't talk about with my week. Like, that is half of my time is leading group calls, having one-on-one calls, being coached myself, reaching out to agents in my local market that I'm like just trying to build rapport with. Like, I'm trying to add value where I can because I've gotten so much value from others.
Yep. Yeah, fair enough. What about resources as far as podcasts and everything like
Yeah,
that?
that's a good question. My partner is almost 10 years younger than me,
Right.
and he didn't go to business school like me. He hasn't kind of read the typical things that I thought people have read, and he's going through these like books like the E Myth, which is a great business book. Some of Russell Brunson's books and different things like that. And he's like, "How did you know all this stuff?" I'm like, "I read that book 10 years ago. Like I've been like that. I've been a student of these kind of things for a long time, and now I finally have the chance and the runway to apply these methods." But one above all of those that I would recommend is The Score Takes Care of Itself. So this is a book written by Bill Walsh. It's actually written by a ghostwriter who was the famous coach of the San Francisco 49ers. And something he really points out as from a football perspective is the standard of performance. Now, this is kind of stoic. I also enjoy a lot of stoic philosophy, but his point was all you can control is what you do right now.
Yep.
The score takes care of itself. We're not so worried about the outcome. And so often in real estate, like people look at the scoreboard. Even my partner at times, he's looking at like where we rank in the market. And I'm like, I don't even care about that scoreboard. Like, are we building the business that we want to build? That's all I'm questioning. Because those big teams that, spend a couple million a year on marketing, they're going to beat us on that scoreboard. And I'm not even thinking about that.
Fair enough, yeah.
But whenever you can focus on, okay, what do I need to do right now to build a business that I really want to build that's going to serve me and my family? I think it simplifies everything a bit. Then you're not like so drawn to these shiny objects. Oh, I need this new CRM or YouTube. I've never thought of YouTube. I'm gonna go start a YouTube channel. Like, no, like let's dial this back and really like focus on what you can do right now to get where you want to go.
I don't know any better way to end the podcast on, but Sam, thank you so much for joining us on Rethink Real Estate. I think the insights have been amazing today, and I'd encourage anybody to reach out to you if they're looking to go down this path, because it really does feel something a little bit more tangible that you're building than just generally out there selling real estate.
Right. Yeah. I think it's duplicatable. Like that's what I'm really proud of. I was able to duplicate it from someone else. So I'm even the proof that it's duplicatable. Like I would love to show anybody how to like completely duplicate everything I'm doing.
Thanks again for jumping on Rethink Real Estate.
Thanks, Ben.
So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.